is ensuring that quality management for audit of financial statements. This one is much easier. But to talk about quality management for firms that perform audits or reviews of financial statements, it's a wholesome. And that's what we want to look at and see that the entire wholesome quality audits are done. How do we ensure that there is quality audits? How do we ensure that management, quality management of audits is performed, is seen to have been performed, and the results are seen to have been achieved? This one we want to look at it because of that. So number one is that there's international standard on quality management, one, which emphasizes on quality management for firms. Take note, quality management for firms that perform audits, or those firms that perform reviews of financial statements. Number two, ISQM2, which is engagement quality reviews. Engagement quality reviews, it means that when we have done an engagement, we look at have we achieved our engagement objectives with the audits that we have undertaken. So this one here, read alongside International Standard on Auditing 220 as is revised, ensures that there's quality management for an audit of financial statements. Now, what are the key principles that underlie these quality standards? What are the key principles? Actually, quality standards focus on public interest. Public interest because auditors are meant to safeguard public interests, and that's why they are governed by the law. Any work they do is referred to a specific audit standard, and every accounting standard that was done to prepare the financial statements is attached to a specific audit standard for purposes of this. So we are addressing issues that ensures that there are no audit failures that occur. Audit failures here means when you don't follow the standards, then you are bound to leave the route meant for an audit process. So number two, the need for audit partners and audit teams to show that they are professional and that they have independence in their work, so that whatever they do is challenged by the standards, so that their mindset is well set. We're saying that the need for audit partners and audit teams to exhibit professional skepticism with independent and actual challenging mindset is normally ensured by the use of this ISQ1 and ISQ2. So I want you to understand one thing. We are on a very serious issue about the standards, and you have to look at the key principles that underlie these quality standards. What are they? I've said number one is the quality standards focus on public interest. The hope being that we address circumstances which an audit failure may have taken place. Number two, the need that the audit partners and the teams thereon are exhibiting professional skepticism with independent and challenging mindset. It's very important to note these first two. Number three, all teams need to have competent staff and support to do their work without fearing any negative implications. Because when you are doing audits, we know very well how audits are. Just a minute. We know how audits are. Sometimes auditors normally go through some of these very challenging times when they're doing their audits. You have heard about auditors being, if they're not so independent and the audits are, in fact, sometimes including forensics, they will create a situation which is not very good. So they don't need to fear those negative implications. They have to do their audits because they are being monitored. Number four, the quality standards adopt a proactive attitude. Proactive attitude here means that when you have got the set rules and standards to follow, we have to ensure that we approach these audits in a way that makes sure that we want to create quality in the audit of our firms. you can see that small farms audits is different from multinational farm audits. Whenever you're doing small farm audits, you should ensure that the quality at that point is achieved. Whenever you're doing large farm or multinational audits, you should ensure that quality is achieved. How do you do that? We're going to look at some areas as we're going forward, how we achieve that quality for both of them. So you're supposed to have a proactive attitude because you are being guided. When you are being guided, you take your stand correctly and move on. Number 5, there's always need to ensure audit quality evolves. Here it means that when you are doing audits, the scope within quality guidance for farm process to change as technology and business practice change is very key. When you are doing any audits, ensure that you go with technology. Ensure that as you do your process changes, you go with process changes as the technology changes. For example, you'll get some farms who have developed their own audit quality softwares. When they have developed their own audit softwares, they are also supposed to come and map them with what does this ISQM1 say about this area. What does it say? Are we within that framework? If we are not within that framework, what should we do so that we map onto the ISQM1 and then we are not losing out on our quality standards? Number 6, there is focus on improving both internal and external monitoring of farms. Most of the farms, audit farms, need to ensure that there is focus on improving both internal and external audit and their networks on improving communication, both internally to external parties as those charged with governance and regulations. What does this one mean? It means that whenever we are doing audits, we have to ensure that our communication from the people who are in charge of the audits, to the staff who are doing the audits, to the management of the auditee firms, to the parties who are interested in this audit is very clear. We should know how to communicate them, at what point to communicate them, so that the audits are moving smoothly. And at this point, where we find that our communication is not meeting the set guidelines, we do improvements, both internally and both external parties. This is very important. This is number 6. Let's look at ISQM1. ISQM1, as said earlier, is on quality management for firms that perform audits or reviews of financial statements or other assurance or related services agreements. This is what ISQM1 is all about, International Standard on Quality Management 1. Remember, we moved from International Standard on Quality Control to International Standard on Quality Management 1. Let's look at this. This one is our key area. ISQM1, we are saying that we are normally driven by principles, requirements of a firm, so that we create a system of quality management, abbreviated as SOQM, system of quality management, tailored to specific firm and possibly its client base. So you'll find that the system of quality management should be always tailored to specific firms. The way you audit a manufacturing firm is different from the way you audit at a firm of transporters, is the way you audit a firm in charge of construction. So the system of quality management that you set for a specific firm differs from one industry to another industry. It can even differ from one firm to the same firm in the same industry based on what they do. It's very key. So ISQM1 embeds this approach through a principle-driven requirement for firms to create a system of quality management which is tailored to the firm and its client base. Take note of that it's always tailored to the specific firm and its client base. So you'll find that if the client base are changing from different from client base of another firm, but in the same industry, then the system of quality management that you set will also change a little bit to ensure that there is scalability. This scalability is there to ensure that the firms design a system which addresses the specific circumstances. So we are doing that because we are addressing specific circumstances of different firms in those different industries, and therefore there are risks. Now let's look at what does this system of quality management, what are the 8 areas that it addresses? What the components that it must address, so that when you're doing your system of quality management, you understand if I do this factor, it will have to coincide with this area in our ISQM1. Number one is firm's risk assessment process. The firm must design and implement a risk assessment process that always sets quality objectives and identifies risks. What do we mean by that? You should ensure that every time we have implemented a risk assessment process. That risk assessment process, you have identified the risks in that firm. Which types of risks are these? Inherent risks. What are they? Are they credit risks? What are they? Are they this kind of risks? Then you set quality objectives that ensures that you must identify those risks as you go through your audit process. The second one on number 1 is that the firm's specific situations and environment must be considered. We know very well that before you go for audits, you have to understand the environment in which you're going to. So when you're doing this, you have to understand which type of firm is this. E.g., when you're going to audit a firm like Safaricom, you have to understand that they're highly technologically advanced firms. Most of their audits are highly technological. Even their procurement is highly technological. Their service provision is highly technological. What do you need to ensure that you have that? So in your SOQM for a specific firm, you should ensure that the firm's specific situation and environment is very well considered. Not forgetting the technologies that the firm uses, their networks, and the service providers are also considered before you do that. So as you set your standard on quality management for specific firm, ensure that you understand the environment of that firm. We are saying then that on the same one, we are maintaining this focus on risks and their mitigation. Always the risks, when they are there, we look at what are our mitigation factors. What do we do as our mitigation factors? Because the risk is not there only to be identified. We identify the risks. Then after identifying the risks, we have to look at the mitigation factors. For example, if the risk is on credit risk, what do we do to ensure that the funds given out are given for the purpose intended for and the purpose is achieved as is required? So the firm should enable and focus ensuring the right engagement or audit reports is issued for each assignment. So every assignment should have its right engagement, right audit report. It should also have key tailored risks for that specific firm. The risks, therefore, should have what are the mitigation factors for each risk. Then the most crucial point is that in this number 1, which we have talked about, firm's risk assessment process, we are saying that the most crucial point is that this approach is tailored to address the specific risks arising in specific firms and not expected to be same for every audit firm regardless of size or client portfolio. So every firm, the way the audit partners understand risk is different from the way another firm will understand it. The way they understand how to undertake mitigation on specific risks is different from the way another firm will understand it. So this SOQM ensures that it captures the way you take your approach towards the risk, how you address those specific risks, and it therefore gives us what we call a specific audit firm approach towards the risk. Number two, governance and leadership. Governance and leadership. Just before I go to governance and leadership, anyone with the question on number one? On number one, I said is firm's risk assessment process. Anybody on question on number one? Anybody on firm's risk assessment process? Nobody. Anybody? So that's the first component. Let's go to the second component. Governance and leadership. Actually, every firm has got the way it undertakes its governance. It has got its governance structure. Every firm has got the way it does its governance and the way its leadership is. For example, from the board of management, that's where the governance is. We are talking about the board of directors or board of management for schools. They have to understand who has the responsibility to ensure that there is quality in the way the audits are done. So the firms, the way they assign who is at the governance, for example, they may be having what you call an audit committee of the board or an audit committee to ensure that the quality is there. Number two, on the management, they may also be having the management who are in charge of audit for that period. The management who are in charge of audit for that period are reporting maybe to the board of directors. So we are saying that it is the firm's responsibility to ensure that the CEO or the managing partner assigned the responsibility and accounting for the standard on quality management is somebody who is vast, somebody who understands what is going on. So in auditing firms, we know that when that one is assigned to the managing partner or somebody who is of higher authority in the audit firm, then that person will have to understand that the standards on quality management must be met. The tone at the top will always ensure that we are enforcing commitment to quality. We are ensuring also we are enforcing commitment to ethics across the entire audit firm. The audit firm ensures that it's picking up what we call quality because the tone at the top of the audit firm is for it. Mark you, the standards are right now putting us in a situation whereby we have no option. We have no option apart from ensuring that the quality is well adhered to. So our standards on quality management should ensure that the responsibility lies with the top management. It should not be with lower staff in the audit firm. Then we are saying that there's relevant ethical requirements. You can see in number 2, we talked about something here. We said that they should ensure that the tone at the top enforces a commitment to quality and ethics across the whole firm. Quality and ethics across the whole firm means before you go for the audits, you have trained people correctly, you have set your timelines, you have identified your risks correctly, you have ensured that the risks that are being identified are addressed as to their mitigation measures. And then when you're doing that, of course, then you are saying that what are the relevant ethical requirements? What are the relevant ethical requirements? The relevant ethical requirements should include objectives and policies for ensuring that there's the fulfillment of ethical requirements. You should set a proper paper that says This objective and these policies are ensuring that there is proper ethical requirements in here. What does it mean? It means that the people undertaking audits, even if it's audit for firms where they know very well that they are supposed to state their stand in terms of, do they have any attachments to those firms that they are going to the audits? Should they recuse themselves from that? The standard should ensure that the objectives and policies are very correct in terms of ethics. Again, we should note that these processes always differ depending on firm size. So an audit firm, in terms of fulfillment of ethical requirements, differs. Maybe a small audit firm, medium audit firm, or big audit firms. So the scalability of the standard requires firms to have in place mitigation for ethical risks. How do we do that? We do that by ensuring that we do proper checks, we do proper sound checks to ensure that all our staff who are going to do audit have no problem in terms of their standards of ethics. Number two, that they are easily able to ensure that we fix all responses over a given risk that we come to. So relevant ethical requirements is very key in terms of how we do it, because it is the only way that will ensure that the firm's ethical risks are well handled. Any question up to there, members? Any question? Any question? I can see members are adding up. Any question on these relevant ethical requirements? Number 3. We can do questions as we move on. We can do questions as we move on. We can do questions as we move on. So we continue. We are saying that yes, Anish. We go to the next one, which is acceptance and continuance of client relationships. You know very well that before you enter into audit engagement, you have got several factors you have to consider before you accept that audit engagement. There are many, including one, understanding the nature of business that you want to do and audit. Number 2, understanding if there is any problem with the type of business that the client that you want to audit is having. For example, if they are dealing with anything that is irregular, that can interfere with government regulations, government laws. For example, sale of marijuana. We're talking about people who are dealing with the contrabands, people who are dealing with funds that are going to bring problems. For example, funds that have been scaled away from maybe the government and such like things. So we have to understand, when we want to accept any audit engagement, how do we ensure that ISQ1 is adhered to? Number 2, when we are having a firm which we have been doing an audit, how do we ensure that there's continuance of our relationship with that client in such a manner that International Standard on Quality Management 1 is adhered to? Actually, ISQ1 emphasizes that the procedures addressing client acceptance and continuance of business relationship is very important. How you accept those clients puts you in a better place to ensure that your ethics are correct, your client's ethics are correct, and that when your audits are being done, they are not contravening any areas which are not good. So we're saying that ISQ is addressing client acceptance and the continuance of the existing relationship. Remember, I told you ISQ1 replaced ISQC1. Why? It's because of this. Let's look at it. ISQ1 replaces ISQC SQC was focusing on quality control alone. But this one is focusing on quality management system necessary to create an environment that enables and supports engagement teams. So we are saying that ISQ1 is much wider. It's wider. It's wider because we are looking at creating an environment which enables us to support engagement teams. The engagement teams should be supported so that they perform quality engagements. Those quality engagements is the purpose that ISQ1 is there. So remember that we are now looking at ISQ1, which emphasizes on procedures addressing client acceptance. It was not now on quality alone. It's now on what is the entire process of client acceptance. What should be done? Which forms should they fill? They should declare their interests in the firm. Can we ensure that we are accepting this firm only after we have got the necessary papers for purposes of this audit? So I think that what we are doing here is the firms must assess the integrity and ethical values of their client. I remember very well, we had a situation whereby in the audit of, it was NYS, it was NYS fund sometimes back. One of the audit firms in the country, a very senior audit firm, they did not do an assessment of what they wanted to do the audit for. But they found themselves in a problem because they were auditing one of the persons who had just received funds from that NYS funds. What happens what happens later on? Of course, there is something of the past, but it's important to understand that when you assess the integrity and ethical values of the client, then when you're doing the audits, you are not finding yourselves hitting a wall, and the wall here being the government. So it shows that the client and its management, as well as the firm's ability to perform engagements within legal and professional requirements. When you are doing that, you have got what we call your working papers. In your working papers, we are saying that you are ensuring that everybody who is your client meets the necessary ethical and integrity values. So all that is very, very important for the purposes of ensuring that ISQ1, which now replaced ISQC1, is meeting its objective. So members, I want to tell you that placing additional emphasis on procedures, addressing client acceptance, and continuing the existing business relationships is key. Number 2, firms must assess the integrity and ethical values of the client and its management, as well as firm's ability to perform the engagements within the legal and professional requirements. Any question on number 4, acceptance and continuing the client relationships? Any question? When I get feedback on questions, then I know we are correct. Any question on this one here? Yes. Somebody wanted to ask a question? Just ask. Just ask. I know there are challenges, some networks here and there, but you can ask the question. Acceptance and continuance of client relationships. How do you accept client relationships? How to ensure that there's continuance? And then we meet the quality standards of auditing on ISQ1. Okay, good, thank you. Yes?
My name is Catherine. I have a question on assessment of integrity and ethical values of the client and its management. Since you've already entered into a contract to audit an organization, how do you
Yes.
should
Yes.
you find out that the integrity and their values are wanting and you've already entered into a contract? How do you mitigate that?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I hope everybody has had that question, a very important question. You have already entered into an engagement with an auditee, and then you come and realize that their integrity and ethical values are wanting. How do you handle that? Very, very important question. Very, very important question. This is very, very important because it now gives us the way forward. Did you, before you entered into engagement, did you do the right checks? Did you do the right audit, do the right audit engagement papers? Did you ask the right questions? Did you do everything? But already you are in, the way you have said. What should you do? What is key for you is that what is important for an audit firm? An audit firm has got two key issues. Number one, the integrity of that audit firm. Number two, the ethical standards of that audit firm. As soon as you enter into an audit and find that later on you have started the work and these people are not correct, for example, we have got money laundering, we have got things like what I've just talked about, NYS. The best way to go about it is to stop that engagement. How do you stop that engagement? It's good to write to them, to give them a questionnaire so that they fill on what you know. Well, after they fill the questionnaire on what you know, it becomes the basis upon which you can either continue or stop that audit engagement. Because if you continue, the integrity of that firm will be tainted. The ethical standards of that firm will be tainted for future engagements. And I want to give you the example of what I've just said about the NYS issue. When the NYS issue was taking place, the person who did that realized later on that he didn't know that the person whom he had undertaken the audit for was one of those people who had taken cash from that engagement. So what happened with him that saved the situation? He requested for audit papers to be filled in terms of questionnaires, and he also did some questions to that client. That client really was very clear and said that this money, I received it because I supplied A, B, C, D to this place. He had been paid part of the money. His account for the firm was closed by the investigators. But because he was very clear and he had those audit questions well clear there, he stopped the audit from there. He never continued it. He never continued that audit at that point. So that's the best way to go about it, because you have to protect the firm, and you have to protect the firm in terms of integrity and ethical standards. Is it correct? Is it clear with you, my dear sister?
Yes, that one is very clear, understood. Thank you.
Very much. Any other question, members? Let us continue on that number 4. Standard on quality management ensures that the firm's financial and operating priorities do not lead to inappropriate judgments. What we mean is this. When an audit firm is undertaking audits, at your disposal is what we call engagement in terms of what is your capacity to handle that audit? What capacity do you have to handle that audit? That capacity to handle the audit is very important for you, because if, for example, you are putting in like 15 staff, we're going to do that audit for 3 weeks. They need to be given a vehicle, or they need to stay somewhere for almost 3 weeks to ensure they're working. They're able to move to your standards in terms of maybe putting on, they have to be very smart, all that. Do not allow yourself to go and borrow from the firm funds to come undertake this audit. Ensure that you can also even engage your fellow audit firms to ensure that you are telling them, yeah, I have this audit, I've got this incapacitation, can you assist us to do these audits? They'll tell you, we are giving you 2-3 staff who will be with you. Based on these 2-3 staff, we are going to ensure that After the work you have been paid is when you can pay us as a firm. Why? Because you are not compromising your standards in terms of financial and operational priorities. So that when you're saying that we're going to do our audits from 8 p.m. to 5 p.m., 8 p.m. to 4 p.m., let it be from 8 p.m. to 5 p.m. or let it be from 8 p.m. to 4 p.m. Let it not be from now 10 to 3, or it becomes now from 10 to 6. You are making your ODT to open the doors for you because you came late. So do not allow your firm to go against that, because it can be used against you when you are doing your final report. The decision to continue with or accept a new client must focus on the firm's ability to provide quality engagement. Only should you take a new client as being one of your audit firms if you are able to. You look at it and say, I can be able to do this firm because I have got at my disposal 4 staff who can do this work, 5 staff who can do this work. They will be at that place for 3, 4, 5. This quality of staff. I need somebody who is of this number of years of working in the audit firm. I need 2 of them who should be this type of clerks. So ensure that those staff are there, so that the quality reviews are done correctly, so that we are having what you call proper assessment of the capacity to finish the audit engagement. So do not allow yourself that you can be able to do an audit engagement and you are not able to finish it. So the decision to continue with or accept a new client should focus on the firm's ability to provide quality engagement. If you find that the engagement cannot work, please tell the client, I'm not able to do this work because of this, and that. Why? So that you don't compromise quality. Remember, ISQ1 is now working. From this year, it's working. It's being assessed very clearly. So I'm sure next year, audit firms will be in for assessment on their how they are dealing with quality in their firms. Number 5 is engagement and performance. Number 5 is engagement and performance. All engagement teams should understand their responsibilities so that they ensure that there's quality audit. Actually, one of the key areas about engagement performance is that you should understand what's your responsibility. You should understand and also inform your auditee. This is your responsibility. They should accept that they should be able to accept their responsibility, and then now, that one means now you can set your SOQM for that audit. You should ensure that less experienced engagement team members should be appropriated and supervised. You have got audit staff who may not be understanding serious issues in the firm, in the audits. Ensure that they are supervised very well. They are given their areas of work. They are supervised in their areas of work. They are given way to produce the reports back to the audit seniors. The audit seniors should be able to understand that those audit reports that they are being given are subject to review by them again. And where they find there is need again to do an assessment of what they have reviewed, they should understand that they can use another team again behind that. So ISQM 1 gives reference to the need for audit engagement partner to be sufficiently and appropriately involved throughout the engagement. So the engagement partner of every audit should have the foot on the pedal every other time an audit is taking place. Why? It should be informed about everything that's taking place, so that at the time of retreating to do a report, they are able to know this report is being done, but we've got all the working papers correctly put. We can produce our audit file very well. We can produce our reports very well, and it's backed up very well. So ISQM 1 specifically reference the need for audit engagement partner. I've said their audit engagement partner must be sufficiently and appropriately involved throughout engagement. He cannot leave that. He cannot be doing that engagement and does not understand what it is. On the same one, They should ensure that the audit teams have got professional skepticism and judgment. They should be able to understand what is the professional touch on this audit. Which judgments are we supposed to do on this type of audit? For example, did we get proper responses from the banks? If we did get, what should we do? Number three, when we were saying that the banks should, the auditee should talk to the banks to give us their report on ABCD, did they do it? When we talk to the auditee should talk to the creditors to give us their report on their balances, did they do it? When we talked about the debtors bringing in their report, did they do it? So they should understand properly. What should we do in case this thing happens like this? For example, the big creditors are not giving us their balances. What should we do? The big debtors are not giving us their balances. What should we do? And yet they are material in nature. So the standard on quality management ensures that the teams can consult on contagious matters. So always the teams that are in the audit, when they reach a point whereby there are contentious matters, do we have a framework upon which they can consult? If there is no need, if there's no framework for consultation, is it proper to say that the reports that they'll produce may not be as correct as it is? Because what I would advise always, do consultation where there are contentious matters and ask, this is what we did. Do you think this is correct? We need a professional to come and testify to give us a report on this area. We didn't get the professional. What should we do? Should it take more time? 2, 3, 4 days? That's important. So the teams must always be able to consult on contagious matters, and it should be inside this, that your framework of SOQM. It should be there. Any question on that? On number 5? Remember number 5, we talked about engagement performance. Any question, members? I want us to feel free and ask those questions. Kindly. Any question? I presume it's touching us well. Let's go to resources. SOQM requires that there must be appropriate resources for the purpose of engagement of audits. The resources here are many types of resources. Employees are resources, funds are resources, training is a resource like what we are doing, capability is a resource. Independent experts are resources. That's what we're talking about. Even specialists are resources. Do we have the right resources for this type of engagement? Because when we were doing our engagement, we did what we call assessment and environment of that organization. We understood this is the type of work that we want to do as an audit. This is what will be required in this audit. We may require specialists. We may be requiring this and this. The type of staff we have may not be understanding this training. Can we do for them a training for like 1, 2, 3, 4 days before you go and do that audit? So when you do that training, it ensures that people are aware when they reach there, when they see red flags, they're able to very quickly identify the red flags, give them the right attention, and address them the way they're supposed to be addressed as per the training. So we're saying that appropriate resources should be available in a timely manner. Employees with the required competent training and capabilities should be there. If they don't have, can we acquire them from even other sources? Because if you acquire them from other sources, it's easier for us to work. Remember, audit firms are allowed. You're allowed to bring in staff who understand the work that you're supposed to do, so long as you can be able to pay them. Use independent experts where the firm does not have appropriate personnel. An example is, let me give you an example. A big road being done by an international organization, maybe a class B road, a class A road. You want to understand to what extent, what's the percentage of completion of the work compared to what amount have we been paid? how much are they supposed to be paid at this point. So we need a civil engineer. The civil engineer who comes in will have to be paid to give you that report. So the report that you're being given will assist you to know, are these people being paid appropriately, or they have received funds in excess of the percentages that they have done the work. So it becomes a whole, it can even take you now several weeks, because the civil engineer will want to maybe cover that road. If it's maybe a 60-kilometer road, 40-kilometer road, and tell you the percentage of completion of this work is maybe 40%, they have been paid 45%, the percentage of completion of this work is 60%, they have been paid 80%. So you can now put your audit and say they need to do this work because they have been paid up to this point, and if they don't take care, this and this will happen. So use of independent experts where the firm does not have appropriate personnel, or if the firm requires additional specialist technical resources, is you have to address it in your standard on quality management paper. So you can see it's specific. These are specifics, specific to specific firm, specific to specific firm, and specific works that you undertake. Any question on resources, members? Any question on specific or appropriate resources, as I have just explained? So we can move on. Information and communication. Originally, as I had said before, it's important that you have to understand that everything that we do in an audit firm is either put on paper, communicated on phone, or put in a report format. And information are normally very important components in SQM to operate. The way you communicate, how did you do it? You know, the way I'm talking right now, unless somebody is taping, after about 3-4 hours from now, it may not be very easy for somebody to say you stated this word after this word, and then you said this word. But it would be easier if it was being written the way I'm talking, because now it's not deniable. It becomes permanent information. So information and communication are required to enable other components of this SOQM to operate. So the way you link one area to another in the audit process should be communicated. The information should be moving very clearly. For example, when you put your chart of how you will operate with your audit, you should be knowing that in the first week we'll be doing this, in the second week we'll be doing this, in the third week we'll be doing this. We expect this information from this place on the second week or the third week, so that you can be questioning. We expected this report in the second week or third week. Why did it not come? We expected this and this report in the first week. Why did it not come? So that one can only be assessed if the information and communication are well addressed. So this information and communication includes, of course, obtaining, generating, and using information, and communicating the information within the firm. Information and communication are required to enable other components of the SQM to operate. But again, we are saying that this information includes obtaining, generating, and using information, and communicating the information within the firm. So we obtain information by either questionnaire, we obtain information by either how our staff are working, we obtain information by either questioning the audit papers, questioning the auditees, the management on several issues, questioning the board on several issues, or we generate our own information, which of course includes the audit papers, the audit questionnaires. We generate the information. The way you communicate this information, the way you use this information is very, very important within the firm and even outside the firm. Because when you are saying the audit firm should have proper information and communication, we are saying that we know very well it's not easy to do communication unless you understand how the communication is supposed to be done. Some of the you realize very well, members, as auditors, one of the biggest problems that's with us is people to communicate. You can be having a very bad scenario, but the way you communicate it will give you a good reparation. You can be having some very good information, but the way you communicate it can give people very bad way to handle it. You even see it in our political world in this country. The way people are handling information and the way they communicate it, information that was meant to be very good to the public turns out to be very bad information. So the way we communicate should be in the SOQM. If you give a politician to communicate information for you, you will be surprised that it may not now be audit information. It will be information for arguments. If you give a preacher to communicate the information to you for you, it will not be information now for acting upon, but it may now be information for repentance purposes. So it is important that you do what you call proper information and communication. In addition to that, ISQ1 considers that information and communication should be pervasive to all components of the SQL. We should understand how to communicate from one point to another, from one sector to another, from one team to another. How should we do it? When should we be having our meetings? When we have the meetings, are we making sure that we address all the issues that we are supposed to be having, so that when we address that, we move to the next point as we move towards the completion of an audit? The full range of information and communication in the standard on quality management should be extensive. It's extensive because you can imagine you start by audit engagement. After doing audit engagement, you start, you have engaged the auditee, you have ensured that the auditee is good. Now you can move on. Number two, you say that now, let us now move on with the audit. When you're doing the audit, you say, this is the roadmap for the audit. We are starting from this point, we're going to this point, we're going to this point number 4, point number 5, until when you finish. So within the SQM is extensive, but let's look at this. The box text below consider just a few examples of some of the elements of ISQM for context in terms of information and communication. You look at the ethical and professional requirements when you are communicating. Look at the firm's policies on ethics. What does it say? Is everybody supposed to communicate, or the people who are supposed to communicate? The training material. Do you have proper training material for that purpose? How is it going, the information going to be communicated? Registers of training undertaken. Can we know that these staff are meeting the qualifications to ensure that proper registers of training are undertaken? Then you're saying completed independent declarations. Can everybody ensure that is saying they have completed their independence? So ethical professional requirements in terms of ISQM 1 should have this content on ethical and professional requirements. So when you are doing that, you are standard on quality management for a specific firm, you ensure that you comply with this. These ones are the regulations thereof. Then we are saying client acceptance and continuation. How do you do it? Did you document the risk assessments of that client? What are the risks that you thought are supposed to be documented and you didn't document? How is the information communicated? An example is when information for a specific risk is realized, can we go further and do more documentation to ensure that we are fully satisfied that really this risk was just there and these people didn't realize, but it's passed? So we can continue the audit assignment, or it is there and we should stop. Client identity documents obtained and stored. Do you have all the documents for the client? For example, are you saying that when you wanted to look at any information relating to the client, which is for permanent in nature, we know all the documents that are supposed to be in the permanent document. Permanent file is supposed to have documents. Do you have all the clients? documents as that are supposed to be there so that we can rely on them for purposes of ensuring they're okay. Engagement letters issued. Do we have the engagement letters issued in terms of information, client acceptance? If the engagement letters were issued, were they signed properly? So it's important to understand that. Then we are saying number 3 on the information and communication, engagement performance. The audit programs should be devised and produced. Have they been devised and produced? Those are part of the information that we're supposed to communicate, because we know that without audit programs, the audit can be really a big issue. We have to assign the roles. We have to delegate the roles and record those roles for each one of them. For example, we know very well that when we are saying that somebody will have to check for the data, the authenticity of the data figure, then we are going to have our audit program for data. What will that person do to ensure that he reaches that point? Should he check every data? Should we check data of this type of magnitude? Or should we ensure that the data as they are being checked are categorized into specific values? Maybe max higher values, medium values, and low values. Then we are saying that client information obtained and input into the automated audit tools. So we are saying that when you're having the audit tools in place, you have client information. When you put it inside the audit tools, have they been input into those audit tools? How will it be done? Who will do it? At what point? And after doing that, who is supposed to review? After review, who is supposed to ensure that after review, we are saying that that area has been completed. Conclusion documents in audit file. Do we document the documents in the audit file? It's important to know that, because when we are doing the audit, at one point we must conclude our audit. And we are doing our conclusion, we have to document. When we document our conclusions, then we are saying that our audit is over. Do we have all the documents to support our conclusions? It's very key. Then reports to management, and of course we are saying that the board. We're saying that if the reports to management have to be given, are we saying that the management letters are well done, they are well documented, they are well supported, that any item of concern to management can be supported, that really it is there and it was supposed to be raised in the management report? Do we have any documents, any items that were supposed to be put in the management reports, but they were not put? Do we have any documents that were supposed not to be in the management report, but they were put in the management report? For example, items that they are not material, they could be discussed and understood, and are not supposed to be reported in the management report, but were put in the management report without discussion. The reason being lack of proper information and communication. And then we are saying monitoring and remediation process. First of all, before we go to monitoring and remediation process, which is number 8, any question in this issue of number 7, information and communication? It starts from here. Information and communication, which we said are required to enable other components of the standard auditing quality management to operate. SQM considers information and communication to be pervasive to all components of the SQM. The full range of information and communication within is very extensive. You can see, because it covers from the start to the end of the audit. It's supposed to be very extensive. And then we are saying that examples of elements of SQM for context is ethical professional requirements, client acceptance and continuation, engagement performance. Any question on that? Members, any question on information and communication?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes, come in.
I Mine goes to the risk assessment. Maybe
Yes.
you can mm, in information and communication.
To information communication risk assessment. Yes.
Yes, yes, risk assessment. Kindly project it. I see that. Um, this is this. Where is it? Just go to the next slide, please.
Just a minute. Is it here?
The next one, Re- client acceptance and continuation. Yes, risk assessment documenting.
Yeah.
Is this before the audit takes place, or who is supposed to have done the risk assessment? I want
The,
to
ri-
understand.
the
Yeah.
risk thank you very much for that question. Thank you very much. The risk assessment is done
Mm.
by the auditor. The risk assessment is done by the auditor. Now, the information about the risk assessments and the way you documented those risks is very, very important, because if you don't document the risks, then you will not understand what you're supposed to do at which stage. So the risk assessments documented are, what are those risks that are documented when you are doing your risk assessment, when you are starting the audit? I hope you get me.
Also, okay, during the audit, of course, you will come across some risks of the inherent in the organization. Is that
Mhm.
so?
Yes.
Those are the ones you're supposed to identify, assess them, and document them. Is that what you are saying?
No, not really. In fact,
Mm,
inherent risks that come thereafter,
mm,
those ones come after you have done your risk assessment of the entire process. Because when you are
okay.
doing your documentation, or when you want to start an audit, you'll find that this area, this audit has got these types of risks, this type of risk, this type of risk, isn't it? So you document it down, but inherent risks will come again and add on whatever that you have documented. But what I want you to understand is very simple. That when you're doing your risk profile, let it be continuous plus including all the risks as you undertake your audits. So that all the risks that you have documented, do you have the mitigation measures for those risks? So your entire information that you pick and document on risk, it covers from the word go when you start your risk up to the end. It's normally not easy for auditors to know the risks at the start. But for situations that, for people who understand how to gauge risks, they'll tell you that in this place that we are in, we have got risk of liquidation. When they just look at the first documents, you give them a balance sheet, they look at very fast the cash ratio, they tell you there's a problem here on this and this. They look at the level of creditors and debtors, they tell you there's a problem of risk here and here, maybe this and this. So they document down. As they go, they measure now on those ones and look at inherent risks and add on whatever they looked at when they started their audit. So it is important to understand that whenever you go in any firm, there are those risks which you will not miss to find. For example, liquidity, isn't it? You look at liquidity. What should I look at? I should look at the cash ratio. I should look at the quick ratio and see if they're okay. So then that will means that I should go back and do the ratio analysis. So whatever that I'm trying to put across here is the risk assessment documents from the risk that you assessed at the initial stage to the end.
Mm.
Are you together, my sister?
Yeah, I think I understand. How I understand it, like the moment you start your auditing process,
Yes.
roughly you can scan the environment, you can scan the documents. There are, if
Yes.
you are a risk expert, there are those risks that you'll be able to identify without necessarily going deeper into them. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. You have got
Okay,
it. You have
thank you.
got it.
Thank
So you start with those ones and then you add on others.
you. Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions in addition to the one my sister has asked? Any other question? Any other question? We can move on to the last one on number 8. On number 8 is monitoring and remediation process. So in SOQM, International Standard on Quality Management, it ensures that as you do your SOQM, there should be monitoring and effectiveness in it. When you're doing monitoring and effectiveness, it means that whenever you are doing the process, you are bound to have weaknesses here and there. How do you ensure that as you go to the next audit, or even in the same audit, you monitored that you did everything correctly? You monitored and ensured that there was maybe something close to what I can say peer review. Did you ensure that there's peer review in terms of your SOQM? In fact, the best way to handle International Standard Quality Management is to use a peer firm to do for you standard quality on management. So we ensure that deficiencies are identified in a timely manner, allowing corrective actions to be implemented. So when deficiencies are being identified, you are ensuring that your standards of quality are very high, such that the deficiencies cannot pass under the bridge without being noticed. So this process of ensuring there is monitoring, there is remediation, should be continuous one for the farm across the year, across the many years, across the same industry. So if you are going to do, for example, SOQM for farms that are in the I can put which best cycle. Let's talk about insurance farms. So you're doing 3, 4, 5 farms. SOQM will almost be the same, but differ a bit in farm to farm. Then you are perfecting your standard on quality management in that industry. So you are monitoring what happened here. Why did not happen here? What are the remedial measures that you're supposed to take? It should be a continuous one. As you have your file for the same, you continue updating it and saying, when we got this is what we did to ensure that we perfected in this. For example, if insurance claims were being paid away from the set regulations, for example, we must be having a report of all the claims in terms of how were the investigations done to arrive at the note that now pay. Is there anyone that was not followed? And was it paid? Why was it paid? Do we have orders from above to pay where they find that the payments, the procedures may not be effective? For example, somebody had an accident. The accident was the accident was not fatal. The motor vehicle was taken for insurance repairs, but again there is no report from maybe the police. There's no report from the necessary maybe engineers like that. But there was an order from above that the vehicle should be repaired. Why? Because maybe that farm is giving us a business of over close to 10, 20 motor vehicles. So if you don't repair this one, the others will be lost out. We have got such like incidents and what is done. So those are the things that you look at when you're doing your audit to ensure that the standards are correct across the board. On the same, we are saying that quality management is core to audit and just a minute. The process is a continuous audit which firms are specifically required to undertake. So this one here on remediation, we are talking about continuously continue with your standards on quality management of that farm on specific sectors, specific industry, specific farms across the year. Then you are perfecting on it. so that anybody who comes to use it later on is understood to be okay. Then we are saying that quality management is core to audit, and detailed understanding of the importance of both audit quality and management. And then we're saying quality is key part of ensuring that audits are fit for purpose and return the public trust. So it is important. This one was our topic which was up there, but I bring it down. I think I want to end there. SOQ2 is inside this SOQ1. I have got simple questions which we'll handle in the next like 10-20 minutes, and then we'll move forward. Any question anyway up to number 8? Any question up to monitoring and remediation process? Before we go to simple, we want to ask ourselves some simple questions if people have understood what we have just talked about. Any question? Let's ask ourselves these questions. Are you able to explain or evaluate a firm's risk assessment process and make recommendations for improvement? In what we have just talked about, can you explain or can you evaluate a firm's risk assessment process? How does a firm undertake its risk assessment process? How do you as an auditor look at if the firm's risk assessment process, how can you undertake it and make recommendations for improvement? Anybody who can explain to me a firm's risk assessment process, please? Just try. What is a firm's risk assessment process? If you don't answer these questions, I'll not finish this topic because I want you to answer. What is a firm's risk assessment process? How do you assess risk? I've just explained it shortly before when my sister asked something. I tried to hint about it. So actually, a firm's when you want to evaluate a firm's risk assessment process, you look first of all if they have got a risk department or the internal audit department can assess the risks that are there. Number two, we are saying that you look at their level of operation. What is their level of operation in terms of liquidity? What is their level of operation in terms of operations, in terms of how do they do their risk assessment as they go forward? When do they know that their operation is continuing for a long time? That way of understanding how they operate for a long time gives you the overview of how you can assess their risk. The risk that they cannot continue if they don't have cash. How do you handle that? So evaluation is very easy, by the way, but you have to be very open, objective, and understand the risk. How does that risk come about? How then is it supposed to be evaluated? I've given another example earlier on of credit risk. A bank is giving out funds, but the funds that it is giving out is meant maybe for building of houses. But when you go to check after about 6 months, there was no house which was being built. That's what we call credit risk. So what do we do? The firm is supposed to understand, therefore, if there is no buildings which are being made in any place, how will be the funds paid back to us? So that's what we call credit risk. So that assessment, evaluation and assessment, then means that we have to do an improvement on the way those houses are supposed to be built. Then the next thing is that the firm now will be always engaging only those firms who have engineers, who have got the plans, who have everything to be done. Then they pay for goods, they pay for the materials, they pay for labor, and they do continuous inspection. That's how we improve on the farm risk assessment procedure. Number two is that can you explain the importance of governance and leadership in maintaining the standards on quality management? Can you explain the importance of governance and leadership in maintaining a standard on quality management? It is very, again, that one here, if somebody asks you such a question, what you're supposed to understand is that at the key of every ISQM should be the board and the top management. They should be at the forefront to lead in the whole exercise. So the importance by being at the forefront is what makes it very key in maintaining a proper SOQM. Because if they are not at the core of it, then this normally is a serious process. The governance and leadership in any organization, if they're not at the helm of any activity, you'll never find it moving as supposed to move. So the importance of them being there is that they are supposed to ensure that the quality management process is well taken up by the teams, the quality management process is well adopted by the teams, and the quality management process is well executed by the teams inside the audit processes. Let's look at the importance of acceptance and continuation assessment in relation to SOQM. Actually, it is very, very important, the way we said up there, acceptance and continuation assessments, that you should assess every firm for its ethical and integrity. So it's important to assess them for ethical and integrity because at that point then, our standards on quality management will be achieved. If we don't assess them for integrity and ethical values, then we'll not get it correct. So it is important that we get that it is their ethical and integrity values that we want to focus on so that we achieve our quality management audits. I think I've tried to answer it for you. You can also answer it as you have understood, unless there's somebody else who wants to add that. But my conclusion is like this. International Standard on Quality Management, 1, provides focus on audit quality and a process of risk management with respect to quality that aims to ensure that all firms have quality as a priority when performing audits and other audit engagements. So our most important thing is that you must have quality as a priority when performing audits and other assurance engagements. Then number 2, the standard is principles driven with a focus on scalability, flexibility, and continuous improvement. So it's not a full stop standard. It's a standard which is a continuous standard. It is a work in progress. So you continue doing your standard audit, standard quality management as time moves, and you perfect in every industry, every organization, and every engagement that you undertake. So this is my conclusion, members, and I want to thank you very much. Any questions on that? Any questions? Any questions? So I'm called CP Ojao, as written there. I normally am a member of the Legislative Committee of ISPAC in Kenya, and I also run an audit firm known as Wanjao and Associates as a managing partner. My contact for purposes of maybe yes calling, there's 2. I want to take this forum back to the person who is in charge here, so that we can move forward.
Thank you so much, CPA. Can you confirm if you can hear me?
I'm hearing
Please.
you. I'm hearing you.
Fine, thank you. Thank you so much for such a powerful presentation there. Actually, it has been the most engaging session we have had quite some time now. I really want to appreciate all the efforts that you made, and also to participants for joining us for today's session. We also give thanks unto you so much. Since you've exhausted nearly all the options for questions and concerns, I guess if you have any addition, in the next 5 seconds, if someone has an addition, they can raise their hands or unmute and say something. Okay. Trying to look at the attendees list. I can't see anyone raising their hand or saying anything. That means that we are all satisfied with this today. And following this one, we have the next session will be on 10th. We'll talk about how productive you can be.
Yes.
And we'll also now have the text on 17th of May. So you can just register for these programs in advance so that we have them scheduled in our calendars just for easy and seamless movement in and about. And without far much talking, I think we'll come to the end of the session. Unless you have CPA, you have the last word.
I want to thank everyone for having attended this session. We'll having more sessions and interactions in the coming days. And I want to thank also all the staff within Capable for enabling this environment to be what it has been. Others, I wish everyone a very good afternoon.
Thank you so much. We can leave the call at our own pleasure. Have a good afternoon.